Hi, today on SortieJazzNights.com we meet drummer, composer, and producer Nate Smith, who's in the middle of a 3-night carte blanche series at the 43rd Montreal Jazz Festival. The first night, July 2nd, was with guitarist Lionel Loueke. July 3rd with pianist Kiefer and bassist CARRTOONS, or Ben Carr.
Yes.
And lastly, July 4th with guitarist Cory Wong and bassist Victor Wooten.
Yes.
That's quite something.
Yes.
So Nate, my first question to you is, how did you go about figuring out this 3-night series in your mind? How did it work out for you?
I wanted to choose musicians who were very special to me first. And then second, I wanted to choose musicians who were very different from each other. So Lionel and Michael are very different from Kiefer and CARRTOONS, and they're very different from Cory and Victor. But I love all of them, and I think they're all very special. And also, it appeals to different sides of my playing too. So with Lionel and Michael, there's a lot more polyrhythm, odd meter, mixed meter music. With Kiefer and CARRTOONS, there's a lot more hip hop, a lot more loop-based music. And with Cory and Victor, it's a lot more funk and just kind of 16th note driven music. So they're very different ensembles, you know.
Mm-hmm. Mm. Interesting. I really got into Kinfolk to See the Birds, which was our top SortieJazzNights.com 2021 album.
Oh,
wow,
hey,
all right. You know, it was a
hey.
big thing. Everybody was going,
Oh man, thank you. I didn't know. That's wonderful.
There you go. And but what was your creative process as far as writing and producing? I think were you producing the album as well?
Yeah.
What behind Kinfolk 2? How did you go about that? I think it was around COVID
It was,
time.
yeah.
Okay.
So we did 2 recording sessions. We did a recording session in June of 2019.
Okay.
And then we did another recording session in February of 2020. And that was right before COVID. And so, I had a long time to listen to the music. Once COVID shut everything, I was at home. So I was listening, and I thought to myself, okay, there are some songs here that sound great, but the album's not complete. So during COVID, I reached out to Brittany Howard, and she sang on a song. I reached out to Regina Carter, and she played on a song. And I feel like that's what really finished the album for me. And so all the guest appearances on the album, Kokai, Ama What, Vernon Reed was done remotely, Regina Carter was done remotely, Brittany Howard was done remotely. But the other 2 artists, some of it we did in studio, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So it took a while to assemble it, but once it came together, it felt really complete to me, and I felt like I really wanted to share it as soon as possible. And the writing process was more about the influences of my teenage years. Mm-hmm. So I was thinking a lot about Living Colour, the great rock band Living Colour. I was thinking a lot about Prince. I was thinking a lot about hip hop, Public Enemy, A Tribe Called Quest. That kind of music is what seeped into the writing for this album. And I'm thrilled with the way it turned out. I'm so proud of it. I'm so proud of the band. You know, I'm really proud of that album.
What I was particularly impressed by in that project is the fact that the music was a mix, as you were saying, of all kinds of grooves. But as far as soloing and that aspect, we got back into jazz. It was a really nice mix of impro, jazz impro, and non-jazz jazz.
Yeah, sure.
It makes sense.
I get what you're saying. Yeah.
I was going, wow, man, such a great mix.
Yeah. It really, I wanted it to be a thing where the genre didn't matter so much.
Yeah.
The genre shouldn't matter as much as the music, you know.
Of course.
And I felt like we accomplished that with that record,
Mm-hmm.
especially having such a band that's full of such great improvisers.
Mm-hmm.
You know, John Coward is incredible.
Wow.
He sounds amazing
Yes.
on the album.
Michael Mayo,
amazing.
Yeah.
Joel Ross, amazing.
Yes, of course.
And so Brad Allen Williams is amazing, and Jaleel Shaw. I mean, it's a very deep band. So a chance to really feature people was the main thing.
And that project was a follow-up in a way of speaking to Kinfolk Postcards from Everywhere that came out in 2017.
Yes.
Another great album. Now, is there a third Kinfolk that you might be thinking about?
for sure.
It's like a trilogy kind of thing?
Yeah, so I made my band leader debut later in my career. I was 41 when the first Kinfolk record. Usually by that point, musicians have put out many, many records, you know. So I kind of wanted to use Kinfolk as a way of introducing the audience to who I am and where I'm from. The first Kinfolk record was about the music of my childhood. The second Kinfolk record was about the music of my teenage years. And there's one that's brewing now that's a little bit more about the music that I was listening to when I was kind of entering my professional phase of my career. This is around 2000, 2001. And I was living in Virginia at the time. And that was a time that D'Angelo Voodoo came out. And it was a time that, you know, hip hop and Dilla was a big deal. He kind of emerged on the scene. So I'm hoping that the music will reflect that.
Mm-hmm. Can't wait to hear it.
Me neither.
You say one thing I saw online. You were talking about how Chris Potter's underground band was an incubator
Yes.
to your drumming.
Yes.
Wow. Can
It
you elaborate on that?
Absolutely. You know, Chris's band was inside the music. He built in these sections, these long vamp sections, and some of it would be in 4/4, some of it would be in mixed meter, odd meter, and it really allowed me a way of creating a groove, but being able to improvise inside the groove and being able to open the groove up, because Chris plays with such openness in his playing. So it really helped me to develop like a language of my own, to play groove-based music, but also with air and space in it. And Chris was the first band leader to ever create a band with me in mind. Every other band I've been in, I was coming in for another drummer. So with Dave Holland, I was coming in after Billy Kilson. But with Chris, he was like, I want Nate in the band because there's a specific thing I hear in his playing that can bring my music to life. So I'm grateful to Chris for that. He was very important for me playing with him.
Great. And what drummers influenced you?
Oh, there's so many. But
4 or 5 of them.
4 or 5. Okay. So Art Blakey.
Art Blakey.
A huge influence. I think he's, to me, one of the funkiest jazz drummers.
Okay.
Elvin Jones.
Mm-hmm.
Again, he's just very expansive, a lot of space in his playing. Steve Gadd, Omar Hakim, Bernard Purdy, James Gatson, Clyde Stubblefield. Okay, that's it.
It's a good list.
Yeah,
it's a good
it's a
list.
good list.
And what other musicians would have influenced you? Maybe Madame Carter.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
I mean,
Betty Carter.
I can't talk too much. I can't talk enough about Betty because she was the first musician of renown, of fame, to hear me play and say, "I think you're special." You know, she was the first person to do that, and so she invited me to participate in Jazz Ahead, which was her residency. She started it in 1995. I did 1996 and 1998, and then again in '99 after she passed away, and I got to play with her. In 1998 a little bit, just before she passed, and I learned a lot. She was an amazing band leader. She was an amazing business person. I just learned a lot watching her play and watching her lead the band. She was hugely influential for me. Dave Holland as well. He's been a huge influence as a band leader, as a composer too. I love the way he writes. Robin Eubanks, who was also in Dave Holland's band, he's a big influence on the way I think about odd meter music. He's huge. So so many.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Great. My last question: what are you listening to these days?
What am I listening to? I went back and I've been listening to a lot of Stevie Wonder, his first solo records with a lot of the synthesizer stuff and his programming. And his songwriting and singing. I've been listening to a lot of, after I worked with Vernon Reid, we talked about Ronald Shannon Jackson, the great drummer he played with for many years. So I've been going back and listening to Ronald Shannon Jackson's playing and finding videos of him playing. He was very unique, he was very special. And I've also just been revisiting music of my childhood. I've been thinking about Prince a lot. I've been thinking about Michael Jackson, early Michael Jackson. I've also been listening a lot to Tony Williams, like fusion Tony Williams, Emergency and stuff like that. So my iPhone has a lot of music. Yeah, a lot of different music in it. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
So, Nate Smith, thank you so much.
Thank you, Claude.
All right.